Man, you're really downing on a lot of things that I like this morning. Jeez, don't yuck my yum.
Don't what?
Don't yuck my yum.
Got it.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristin Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
All right, now because we started with that opener, I have a very important question before I get to the other important question of the day. Would you buy an As Goes Wisconsin shirt that says, don't yuck my yum? 844-967-2789. I got a DM or a comment on social media. I think it was a couple of days ago. And so I was like, I'm just waiting for the opportunity to have a Don't Yuck My Yum t-shirt. And I was like, all right, we'll add it to the idea of the ideas for merch. But would you wear that shirt, Greg?
Only the important questions on As Goes Wisconsin.
Only the important questions. I do have another question.
Yeah, I would totally wear it. Don't yuck my yum. I would wear a vast array of merchandise coming out of the As Goes Wisconsin.
We still have to make, what else is on our list so far? Oplander, Don't Yuck My Yum.
We've missed the ball on
Centennial, whatever. Yeah. Although I did pitch that idea to a couple people and they're like, I don't know what that would mean. So I don't know.
Well, that's why it says ask me about.
Yeah, that's true. What other ideas have we come up with? I had someone pitch a onesie for my pending baby of having a onesie that says, shh, I'm listening to As Goes Wisconsin as a onesie.
Oh, that's funny.
If you have merch ideas, we would love to hear them. But also, if you would buy a Don't Yuck My Yum As Goes Wisconsin t-shirt, should we add that to the list of things that we may launch our own merch store? What other things do we say a lot?
I
think I say I digress a fair amount. But I don't know if that's I can't really coin that as mine.
I mean, it could still be your phrase. I mean, that's a phrase. It's, we'll have to start writing things down, like what our catchphrases are. We need some catchphrases.
We need some catchphrases.
Some sweet catchphrases.
Anyways, if you have opinions on that, we would love to hear them. 844-967-2789. Or if you're listening to this as a podcast, which you can always do at asgoeswisconsin.com/listen or wherever you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple. Stitcher's ending.
What?
I keep getting ads on some of my podcasts saying that Stitcher's closing its doors.
That doesn't surprise me, honestly, because there's so many places to get podcasts.
Yeah. But also shoot us an email at asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us. All right. Next real question. The era of the 9-to-5 workday may be over. Is that a bad thing? I say no. But this obviously only applies to people who work in offices, like people who are nurses, people who are teachers, even people who work in offices but need the equipment that is at the office. Like if you are working on hardware at Apple, or if you are, I guess software you can do from anywhere, but if you are actually building something. But for the jobs, for so many of the jobs that now all you need is an internet connection, is the necessity of being in the office from 9 to 5, that ending, is that such a bad thing? I say no. What say you, Greg?
I think you have to evolve. Some places may need to have that for the reason, but no, it infuriates me how many businesses were just arbitrarily saying, time to come back to the office. Well, why? I'm doing the work I'm doing from home. I can get it done in less time. So how about a 4-day work week? Get Friday or Monday off, or I pick a day, but I'm still getting the work done. Let's evolve this standard. Let's evolve this idea. This 9 to 5 must do 2 weeks of vacation. No, it's not. It doesn't work.
Well,
for everyone.
This is different than, at least where I'm going with this, is different than working from home. So this is talking about workers are returning to the office, but the 9 to 5 straitjacket might be gone.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they may be coming to the office, but they're not just necessarily staying for 8 hours anymore. So this is from Washington Post that I found this story, but they said as more companies tell American workers to return to their cubicles for 2, 3, or even 4 days a week, part of a new wave of even tougher return to office mandates kicking in this fall, one thing is clear. The era of sitting at your desk from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is over. Instead, in a transformative shift to the workday, employees are cashing in on an unspoken new flexibility. They are returning to the office on their own terms, coming in late after a workout or leaving early to grab groceries or pick up their children before logging back on. So they are logging back on, but they're
Yeah.
doing that part from home. And so how do we know that people are doing this? In most of the country, only about half of office visits now last for more than at least 6 hours at a time, according to Wi-Fi data from Basking, which I'd never heard of that company before. It's a workplace occupancy analytics firm. Who knew? There's something for everything. But so yeah, so most uh majority of visits pre-pandemic, 84% lasted 6 hours or more. So there's a ton of people who are like they're going back to the office, but they're just not staying. And I kind of keep coming back to, if you get your work done, is that such a bad thing?
No, it's not. I I used to work for a company that they were very generous with um, their time off, with their vacation, but they also said, "Hey, we don't want you to take a day off of work to do chores, to go to the doctor, to do if you need to take off early, take a half day, that's fine. You know what you do in the pay period? Make up those 4 hours." So you had a flexibility. And
Was it an hourly wage job or was it
no,
still it was
it
salary?
was still salary, but you had to clock in, essentially, let them know when you got in, let them know when you left, and just kind of just they trusted you, and nobody abused this because we didn't want to lose it either. And I think, I do think that the 9 to 5 work, for one thing, the 9 to 5 work week or not work day is ridiculous. I mean, come on. But
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, how many places really, like, unless you're like clocking in and clocking out, the old adage in office space, I'd say in a work week, I get done about 20 minutes of actual work done. You know what I mean? Like, we're not working 9 to 5. We're probably working 10 to 3. And the rest of the time,
Playing solitaire?
solitaire meetings, quote unquote meetings, where it's like, we're not really meeting. We're just hanging out.
Well, and that's another question of, because when you're a shift worker who has to be so if you work in a restaurant and there has to be enough people at the restaurant to make the restaurant run or the fast food place run or the retail shop, like you are paying for someone's time to literally be there. But in office work, are you paying for their time or are you paying for their output? And I don't know if that's always clear. Like, I don't know if that's made clear. Like, I think about this all the time. We've yet to talk about this topic, but this was back in May. There was an Axios article talking about the silent killer being toxic ambiguity at the workplace,
Whoa.
where part of really inefficient work environments is when you don't know what your job is. You're like, I don't know what I'm being measured on. I don't know what my job expectations are. And like, so that's kind of a different topic. But I think about that too, is like, what are you getting paid for? Are you getting paid for your time when it's an office job?
Yeah.
Are you getting paid for your time, which is the expectation is you're working 40 hours a week, or are you getting paid for your performance? And if you work in marketing, like your campaigns are out on time and your analytics are accurate and the reports that you have to run. If you're a salesperson, you're hitting your quota, you're hitting your meeting numbers. If you are a radio host, you get to work and you actually do a show every day.
Well, and I think the jobs that you're talking about right there, those are jobs, and my wife works in banking, and I can tell you this right now, those are jobs that go far and beyond the 9 to 5 standard. Most people who work in those kinds of jobs are working late
Yeah.
night, early weekends, taking their laptop with them on vacation. I don't want to say there's an well, there is an
There is.
expectation, which I personally don't like. I feel like sometimes you just need to shut off. but a lot of people in those jobs don't know how to. They've worked their entire life to get where they want to be. So yeah, if you say like this job's going to require you to work 60, 70 hours a week beyond that 9 to 5, most people are in those situations are going to be like, yeah, that's what I expected to do. That's yeah.
Yeah. But again, so that feels like you are paying for people's output. There's an expectation of what needs to get done in the job to do it well. So, and the expectation is that to do that well, it takes more than 40 hours a week. But I don't know if that's said explicitly.
I mean, I think to do it well, I don't know. I've never been in a job like that myself. I would probably end up burning out myself, like because that's just not. But then again, I also have 95 jobs, so you know. But I think that as far as like the 9 to 5 work week, that traditional thing, I don't know if it's gone because there's a lot of people who still do it, but I think it does need to evolve to a certain extent.
Well, what say you? 844-967-2789. Is the 9 to 5 dead? And is that a bad thing? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-party. We will take your calls and your texts on the topic when we come back. And also, is one company that seems to have figured this out where their employees are actually happy about their return to work plan. And it may surprise you who it is and what they make. But we will go over what they are doing and see if that seems like something that would work for people when we come back. But this is As Goes Wisconsin, looking to take your calls and texts on, is a 9 to 5 over? And is that a bad thing?
Also, we got some texts.
Great. Well, and we are asking if the era of the 9 to 5 workday is over, for at least for corporate office workers. And if so, is that such a bad thing? 844-967-2789. I think both Greg and I say no, but I also think it comes back to the employer to set the expectations when you're hired of, are we paying for your time or are we paying for your output? And are we paying for the results of you completing your job? And if that takes you less time versus more time, uh, that is fine. And also the expectation of when you're in the office and why you're in the office. I think that comes back to so much of like setting expectations from the get go versus saying things after the fact and having some kind of BS reason why that's what we're doing now. But, it's interesting because so many of the big companies that you think would have the most flexibility is not only, I feel like what this originally started because it's people are maybe going into the office, but are they staying for the full day? How do you measure that? How do you expect for the like are you expecting them to stay the whole day, or is it just that they're there for in-person meetings? But there are more and more companies that are saying we're coming back. Meta, aka Facebook, is requiring 3 days a week in the office starting in September. Zoom, which was, the poster child of remote pandemic work, and what allowed all of us to work basically remotely, is asking their workers to come in twice a week. President Biden is urging federal workers to return to the office this fall. And at Amazon, well, they walked out earlier this year, but in a fireside chat earlier this month, CEO Andy Jassy told employees it's past the time to disagree and commit to the company's return to office policy, or else look for another gig. The exact quote was, "It's probably not going to work out for you at Amazon if you're not coming back to the office.
It's time to stop arguing and do it my way.
Do it my way."
Yeah. We do have a text coming in on the topic here from the 262. I think the 9 to 5 work week is at least on its way out, thankfully. My workplace has a 37.5-hour work week and allows employees to work overtime on 4 days so they don't have to, so they can have an afternoon off. We're all happy about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. the the adapting, the remodeling of it. How do you get your workers to work happiest, best? Talk to them. You guys want to work a 4-day work week? Awesome. Like, if that's going to get you to work harder and work smarter and work happier, then great. And that builds morale for the company too.
For sure. And I also think we have a comment from Tony on the YouTube live stream, which you can always watch on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, if you want to see us along with hear us. Tony says, I work from a laptop and I love the flexibility it gives me to work on something at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. I struggle with limiting working to 40 hours a week, though, and balancing work family time. So that's the other thing. It's like when you work from home, having your own boundaries of when are you not working?
Yeah, that's something I struggle with a lot, especially with the club.
Yeah, I bet. So how much do you like for you with the club? Because that seems like a thing where you go to the club and then you are working with the club. So how much do you feel like you bring home with you?
I bring it all home with me. I mean, unless it's a physical item, and it's like, I can be done at the club on an afternoon, and then as I'm driving home, I can come home to 4 or 5 messages from my business partners talking about various things, whether it's booking or that kind of thing. So you're never truly done until, like, I always say 10 o'clock, because 10 o'clock is when Slack will turn the messages off and you don't get anything until the next day. But I can still check, and I'm on call, I'm still working, I'm still available all the time.
But for you, when you think of your work at the club, do you think of yourself as a business owner or as an employee?
Business owner.
See, and I think
Oh,
that's a totally different game.
well,
Because I think when you're an entrepreneur,
yeah.
you never turn it off. But
I
when
mean,
you're employed by someone, the agreement is that you are getting a salary from your boss, and what is the expectation between you and your
yeah, I
boss?
guess you're right. Yeah, so
And so, like, I never turn. You think I ever turn off As Goes Wisconsin? Like in my brain? No,
no.
I have no. And I that's the most interesting thing for me of what's going to change when this kid gets here is like, will that shift, or in these 3 months when I'm gone, do I still am like, we could be doing this, we could be doing that. I should be working on this. Here's my list of like a million projects I want to do when I get back. Or am I finally going to be like, I'm gonna reevaluate my priorities.
Yeah, man. As Goes Wisconsin is just gonna be a stream of conscious. It's a 2-hour show,
Yeah,
man.
I'm just gonna really start phoning it in from now on. No one will notice. Well, I would still love to hear your opinions on this, especially if you currently work a 9 to 5 and you've seen increased flexibility and what that is done or not done for your work ethic, for your output. 844-967-2789. Is the era of the 9 to 5 workday dead? And is that a bad thing? 844-96-party. So the Wall Street Journal just covered a company that may have actually figured it out. And I would be interested to see if you think that this would work for you. Well, how much time we got, Greg?
About a minute. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, I'll tease it. So the company, I haven't thought of this company in so long, but they have some good products. It's JM Smucker, as in Smucker's jam, Jif peanut butter, and my personal kid favorite, Uncrustables. Have you had an Uncrustable?
Yeah.
They're so good. They're really good frozen, by the way. And they also make less of a mess frozen.
Yeah.
But Smucker's has actually maybe figured out how to handle their employees coming back to work without sacrificing flexibility. So we will talk about that when we come back. We'll also go through the good, the bad, and the depends on who you ask of headlines for today. This is As Goes Wisconsin. We would still love to hear from you on the 9 to 5 topic, 844-967-2789. And if you have merch ideas for us to sell, we're going to take your ideas. Give them to us. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristin Bry. Greg Bach is on the board, and we are talking about the 9 to 5 workday and how it is evolving, even as people are going back to the office. They aren't staying for 8 hours necessarily. And is that such a bad thing? 844-967-2789.
Yeah, we got another text coming in from the 414. This is from a teacher. It's very interesting. Teaching never was a 40-hour week, quote unquote, job. Usually I was doing lab prep. I was a science teacher. by 6:30 a.m. and left about 5:30 p.m. It was one of the reasons I retired. Even though I loved what I was doing, I didn't have the energy to do it the way it needs to be done. Of course, I had just turned 70 when I
Whew!
retired. Oh, mother glory.
I think you had earned it at that point.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
And then we have another text from Lynn in Oconomowoc. In my opinion, employers will believe that if you can finish your work in 30 to 35 hours, you need more work.
Yeah.
My daughter was hired 100% remote. She is now being pressured to come in for a quote unquote few hours each week. Word from her team leader is that the industry is expecting a surge in COVID by October, more contagious than ever. My grandson's other grandparents just brought COVID home from Italy. They didn't wear masks and shared it with the grandson, and he picked it up with them at Mitchell Field. So that's Lynn Bauer in Oconomowoc.
So
So
wait, is her daughter a nurse?
she
Or
didn't say,
what's the connection between COVID and
well, I think part of it was saying that her daughter was working remote, is now being encouraged to come in, but now that there is expected to be a surge of COVID in the coming months. And then she was just giving us a little story that the grandparents on the other side brought COVID home from Italy. So
got it.
half message, half wear your mask.
Also that. But yes. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think I kind of just come back to the expectation that the employer sets. Like I think this comes down to if you go into a job and it is explained that this is what we expect of you, then you know what you're signing up for. It's like when you change the rules that people get disgruntled and say, well, this is not necessarily what I signed up for. Or, and like it happens all the time. You get a new boss and the new boss wants to do it a different way. And so you have to, I'm saying, I know you have to be flexible, but as far as the finding the balance from what the company needs versus also the company needs satisfied employees, I think it also comes back to what are you actually measuring and what is the thing that gets you the best results versus kind of an arbitrary old school mentality of, well, that's just the way we've always done it. 844-967-2789. We got Gary from Sussex on the phone. Gary, what do you think?
Well, I'm a heating contractor, so there is no 40-hour for me. I'm on call
Yep.
24 hours a day. Now, I used to work for another company. This is my own company I have now. And when you work for somebody on call 24 hours a day, it is like brutal. I mean, just anticipating, you can't even go out. And if you do go out, you have to have your phone next to you that if it rings, you have to go out on a service call. But when you own your own company, it's totally, totally different psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 71 years old and I'm not ready to retire. So it is different when you're working for somebody working more than 40 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? I like the idea for just a normal person. I'd like these 4-day weeks and then have the weekend off.
Mm-hmm.
You work 10 hours. To me, that seems like a good thing. But for me, I work all the time. I get calls at 2:00 in the morning, so I'm used to it.
But
when
you
like
agree
I said,
that
when you
there's
own
an
your own
ownership
business,
there's a shift in mindset when you're the owner.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I did it. I was at a company for 35 years, and I was the manager of the company, but I still wasn't the owner. So I was still working for the man. And now I work even more than I did before, and I feel less stressed because it's my business,
Totally.
and it's my name on everything.
Gary, let me ask you one more question before I let you go. So, had you,
Sure.
as a manager of the other company, but not the owner, had you been given equity in the company? So, like profit sharing, do you think that would have
Yes.
shifted your mentality?
Well, yes, I did get profit sharing.
Oh, you did?
When I retired, yes. Oh, absolutely. But I wasn't the only person. Every single person that worked at this company was vested. Now,
Okay.
the longer you're there, the more money you get. So it's like a piece of pie. Okay. When you're there the first year, you get one little slice of piece of pie about the size of a pencil lead. But I was there 35 years, so I ended up getting like 25% of all the
Wow.
profits, and there was $250,000 we we divvied out between everybody. So as people would come and they'd quit all the time, my piece of pie got bigger. But when there's people that stayed longer, then the pie didn't grow. So yeah, it did. You know, it was nice having that, because when I retired, I got myself a really real nice nest egg. But I started my business as soon as they sold the business, Kristin. Okay, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up starting a business. I was too young. I was a youngster. I was 61 when I wasn't ready to retire. And now I'm 71, and I had my business for 10 years. And I'm planning on working until I drop.
Until you can't?
Find my body in the basement. Yes, I love.
Well, I hope you
working.
take some vacations, Gary.
It's hard, but I do sometimes.
I love that. Nah.
Not for me. Thanks so much for the call, Gary. Because I think that's also interesting, is like the incentivizing of people when like there is something to be gained from the company succeeding. I also think that is a shift in like, I am employing you to do a job so that my company can do better, versus I'm employing you and you will also benefit as the company benefits. And I don't like, that was like whatever company that he was working for, like that's an impressive. I don't think you hear about that as much anymore.
No, you don't. But those are usually small companies run by people who have an idea of either A, really want to look after their people, or B, worked in a job where they weren't looked after and said, well, now this is my business. This is how I'm going to do it. And I remember I had a job where I was talking to my boss and I said, you know, I know the company doesn't have the money to give me a raise, but what about X, Y, Z? What about some more vacation time? What about this? And he dead looked in my face and goes, your job is your benefit. Yeah.
All right.
And I was like,
talk about setting expectations.
Yeah, right. I'm like, okay, cool. You really care about me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, I did not like it all. We have actually a couple of more texts coming in. It's getting fiery today. I'm loving this. From the 262, I think employers are trying to get the power back from the worker, get their power back from the worker, because since COVID, employees have realized they're more valuable than ever, whether it's hours, pay, or out of the office. Employers are constantly looking to be in control. Employers, yeah. The way the texts come in, they like split words in half, and so I apologize for my reading.
I think, well, and it's also interesting of how much of this is tied up in the looming commercial real estate crisis that cities could be facing.
Yeah.
And basically like all these mortgages that are going to come due in empty buildings that are not rented out. And so the developers that have taken out loans can't pay back their loans because they don't have renters, because people are not back in the office. And like the doom loop that could create, especially if like there's not more a fast or like an expedited way to transition some of those buildings into like apartments or other things that you can do with it. And so when I think about some of these big companies and these like some tech companies that like are very much built to be able to do this, it's like, are you invested somewhere that like you need people in the office to justify the expense of your office spaces?
Do not worry, those are businesses. If something happens, the government will take care of them. From the 715, Amazon hired 100% remote teams the last few years and now are requiring them to, quote unquote, return to the office. But many of them don't live near offices, so they are forced to either relocate or lose their job. Many of them will quit, and Amazon should be more flexible with these teams to find a way to retain them. But alas, Amazon will Amazon, as they always done. I like that. Amazon will Amazon.
Amazon's going to Amazon.
They're gonna Amazon
Well, it's
everywhere.
interesting because maybe they could take a lesson from J.M. Smucker.
That's right.
So since January 2022, J.M. Smucker has been trying to bring workers back to its headquarters in Orrville, Ohio. Is that also where they make the popcorn? Isn't that the popcorn company, Orville?
The guy's name was Orville Redenbacher.
Yeah, Orville Redenbacher. I think there's two R's in this Orville. I think there's maybe only one in that one. Orville. They got to bring that name back.
That's a great name.
So now during its 22, so they now do 22 core weeks a year. And this is from the Wall Street Journal that just did a pretty big article on this. So core weeks usually take place every other week except for the months of July and December when the company holds just one core week a month. So the plan, so it's basically like in the 22 core weeks, the expectation is that you're there. And the off weeks, you don't have to be there. So I guess the plan initially didn't gain traction with employees, but these days, Smucker's home office is between 70 to 80% full during most core weeks. Many employees usually pack their days with meetings, team lunches, and dinners during core weeks, and company leaders usually save meetings that require deep focus for these periods. Quote, the goal of the model is to offer our employees flexibility, foster in person connection, and drive business results, a spokesperson for the company told Insider by mail or by email. We are committed to consistently evaluating the model to ensure it continues to meet the needs of our employees and the business. However, we are pleased with the results to date. So I think that's really interesting as far as the fact of instead of it week over week, you need to be here 3 days out of the 5 each week. It also allows people, so like their VP of marketing lives in San Francisco. So she's traveling more, but like when she's in Orville, she's in Orville. And when she's in San Francisco, she's in San Francisco. And so like when she was when she was asked about it, she was like, I actually feel much more present than I would if I was commuting 3 days a week at a company that was in the Bay Area. And so it'd be interesting to think of like, instead of days out of the week, it's weeks out of the month. And like in those weeks, we know that we are going to do the work that is easier to do in person. And also, because I always think about this part is like the connection you make with your coworkers that can't be replicated on Slack.
Yeah, I could talk about Slack for a while.
Not Slack. I'm talking about any GChat.
Well, no, I mean that's the thing is I could talk like those. I understand their usefulness, but sometimes when you see that message come through, you're like, I just want to watch a TV show. When you're at home, when you're just not doing anything, and you're like, I don't want to look at work right now. So that's a whole different conversation.
I was gonna say that went.
I'm sorry.
I was more meant of like as far as like building connections with the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
And like when you're remote, it's harder to do that over any kind of chatting device. Well, I didn't get to the good, bad, and the ugly, so we'll fire through that when we come back after the break. But we'll also get to some of your texts about what merch we should be doing.
Ooh,
so,
yeah.
the question is, we started with, would you buy a "Don't Yuck My Yum" t-shirt, As Goes Wisconsin t-shirt, and do you have other ideas of merch that we could launch in a merch store? We're crowdsourcing right now, so. Stick around. We will come back with the good, the bad, and the depends on who you ask of the headlines. We'll get to some of your merch texts, and there'll be more As Goes Wisconsin in general. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Oh, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry, and Greg Bach is on the board, and we're going to power through some headlines before we wrap up this hour of the show. But next hour, we are welcoming back Natalie Eilbert, who is reports on mental health stories, issues for the Gannett, USA Today, across the board, but mostly for Green Bay Gazette, and also Madison Lammert, who is the Report for America core member based in Appleton Post Crescent. They had a article that came out a week or so ago with this headline: Wisconsin preschoolers are 5 times more likely to be expelled than K through 12 students. So that kind of stopped me. And so they're going to be here to talk more about why that is, what's causing it, potential solutions to that. So that's coming up at 11 o'clock. And then at 11:30, would you pay more for a plane ticket if you didn't have to sit, if you were promised you would not have to sit with babies or children? Is that worth more money to you? So we will get your calls and thoughts on that new business model from a Turkish airline. But for now, good headlines. Let's start there. Biden takes on big pharma to lower drug prices. The Biden administration took its biggest step yet to lower drug costs for Americans, dropping the highly anticipated list of 10 prescription drugs that will first be subject to negotiations with Medicare. Medicines include blockbuster treatments like blood thinner Elquis. I'm gonna butcher all of these names because that's how it goes when you try to pronounce some of these prescription drugs. Elquis from Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer, and the diabetes pill Jardiance from Eli Lilly,
Diabetes.
and Boehringer and Ingelheim.
That's my name
company.
too.
Boehringer and Don Jacob Singles.
Bo Ringelheimer Schmitz.
That's my name too. But pharma companies are having kittens over this move, one of the most substantial actions ever taken against the industry, and are assembling an army of lawyers to stop it from happening. So this is kind of just the beginning of that story, but at least it's a start as far as some of these life-saving drugs that should not be exorbitantly expensive, and that, especially for people who are on Medicare. And so the government actually taking action to negotiate and use their power to bring down the prices of some of these things, I see as a good thing.
Yeah. Because it helps the people. Hello.
Helps the people. All right. The bad. Jay Rothman, UW System president, gave an interview this week with The Morning Show on WPR, saying starved universities cannot meet Wisconsin's workforce needs. So if you have not been following the fallout from how the UW system basically absorbed the $32 million budget cut that the Republicans in the legislature enforced because they don't like diversity DEI programs. UW-Madison took the biggest hit. I think they absorbed about $7 million of that, with UWM being the next with about $1.8 million. But this is also after UW-Parkside, UW-Platteville recently announced potential furloughs, retirement incentives, and layoffs to address their budget deficits, which is about $15 million. Earlier this month, UW-Oshkosh announced plans to cut 200 staff positions to address a projected $18 million deficit. And so, Jay Rothman's here being like, listen, how are you expecting us to train workers and attract more students to fill the gap of our worker shortage if you keep starving us? So they're petitioning. They're petitioning the legislature's budget committee to reclaim that $32 million, but we will see where that lands.
Good luck.
And for the depends on who you ask. tax breaks. Yesterday, Republican lawmakers say a nearly $3 billion tax cut proposal will bring relief to middle-class Wisconsinites, including retirees. So if you'll remember, on September 20th, this coming in the future, we're going to have a special session. TBD if the Republicans gavel in and gavel out, as they usually do during special sessions called by Governor Evers. But and that was about using, because after the budget, we still have a $4 billion surplus. And the question is, how should we use that? Should we use that? Or are we going to continue to let it sit there? And the same fight that was happening with the budget is Governor Evers and Democrats are saying workforce programs, which includes paid family leave, childcare. And so that is what the special session coming up in September is supposed to be about. And then yesterday, Republicans are still on the tax breaks. And so yesterday, they introduced a bill that would use the state's surplus to cut income taxes for Wisconsin's third bracket from 5.3 to 4.4% starting next year. And if you remember, the third bracket in Wisconsin ranges from $27,000 a year to $304,000 a year for single filers, or if you're a joint family or joint filers, $36,000 to $405,000. So we have a very big third bracket that is very flat with people who are living very different experiences as far as how much of their money is going to their taxes based on being in a huge, huge swath of filers in Wisconsin. And so this also includes a bill to expand tax cuts for retirees who are at least 67 years old. So it would be a tax exemption for retirement income up to $100,000 for individuals or $150,000 for joint married filers. And also on Tuesday, Republicans introduced a joint resolution that would make it more difficult to raise taxes in Wisconsin. So under the proposed constitutional amendment, yes, they want to change the Constitution. It would require approval by 2/3 majority of both chambers of the state legislature to raise income, sales, or franchise taxes. So is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Depends on who you ask. But that is our headlines for the day. When we come back, after the top of the hour news, Natalie Eilbert and Madison Lambert will be here to talk about their report about preschoolers getting not only suspended, but expelled. So stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.